So really, once you ovulate, it is a countdown until you get your period. If you do not get your period by that time, then you're pregnant. The luteal phase is the second half of your menstrual cycle. So you have your follicular phase and then your luteal phase. It'll definitely be easier if I draw it out. So you have your cycle. This is day 1 of your period. And then you work up to ovulation. Ovulation happens. And then now we're in our luteal phase. So usually cycles are around like 28, 29 days, but your cycle can range from about 24 to 36 days. If it's outside that range, it could be irregular. And typically if you're having about a 29-day cycle, ovulation will probably occur between like 13 and 15 days-ish. Before ovulation was our follicular phase, and then once we ovulate, we're now in our luteal phase. So ovulation is the release of the egg from the follicle that was growing during this phase. Once that egg gets released, this empty follicle that the egg came out of turns into something called the corpus luteum. This corpus luteum is making progesterone for the remainder of your cycle during the luteal phase. So the luteal phase is governed by progesterone. What progesterone does during this time is make the uterine lining that you were building up over this phase more stable and nutrient rich. So if you were to get pregnant and you had an implantation somewhere around here, it would be able to implant nicely in your uterine lining and it would be more receptive to it. So during this time, progesterone kind of looks like this. And progesterone also balances the effects of estrogen that was building up over this time. And we do actually have a little hump of estrogen here, but basically progesterone is kind of protecting your body from the effects of estrogen. So if you have lower progesterone than you want, or you're not ovulating, you might have too high estrogen in relation to progesterone, and that can create a lot of PMS symptoms. So we want to make sure that we are ovulating regularly and that these two are sort of like in balance for your body. Now, from after ovulation until your next period is the length of the luteal phase. The luteal phase length doesn't really differ much per person. Whatever your length is generally what your length is. So it ranges from about like, let's say 9 days to 16 days. It's not really gonna go over 16 days at all, but you could range between this point. Generally, we wanna see a luteal phase of like 12 to 14 days. If you have less than 10 days, let's say you have 9 days, 8 days, even 10 days, you might not be making sufficient progesterone, and that can come across as like spotting before your period, because remember, your period only starts the day you get a full bleed. So if you're getting some spotting before that, that could be related to low progesterone. Having low progesterone in these short luteal phases can put you at higher risk of miscarriage and also trouble getting pregnant. So testing progesterone approximately 7 days after you ovulate is a pretty good marker. And the reason that you get your period at the end of your cycle is because your progesterone and your estrogen, they both drop because this corpus luteum is making progesterone and it only lasts so long. So if you do not get pregnant, the corpus luteum is going to degrade, therefore dropping these hormones. If you do get pregnant, when that embryo implants, it makes the HCG hormone that you can test on a pregnancy test, and that will actually keep this corpus luteum alive. Continue making progesterone, a little bit of estrogen until the placenta can take over.